Hi, today I'm going to introduce you to the new Universal Cinch, and I'll show you some things that are different from other versions of the cinch machine versus this new awesome tool. All right, the first thing about the Universal Cinch that is different than other cinches that we've made in the past is that it is universal. Now, what do we mean by that? It means that it will work with most of the binding options on the market. So because of this different shaped hole, which we'll see in just a second, it looks a little bit different, it will function perfectly with coils of different pitch and size. So what do we mean by pitch? Well, the pitch is the spacing between the wires of a coil. So this one right here is a 2-to-1 pitch, which means there's 2 of these little loops per inch on this coil, versus something like this one, which is a spiral coil. This one is 5 little loops per inch. So that's a 5-to-1 pitch on this coil. So the Universal Cinch will work with all of the different pitch sizes. It works with ring binding. It works with binding, like binders ring bound. Anything, because of this awesome new shape of the hole, it is compatible with all of these different things, and that's what makes it universal. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do when you pull your Universal Cinch out of the box is to release the handle, which is the same as our previous cinches. And because of the way these are manufactured, there are some residual oils inside of the punching. So just grab some scrap pieces of paper, and we want to clean out some of those oils just by punching this a few times. And you'll get to see what this new punch shape looks like. So there's the new punch shape. That's why it works with all those different coils. You'll just want to flip this around, just punch it a few times over and over again. Doesn't have to be precise. Just to make sure that those residual oils are clean. And if you don't see any oil around these, then it's ready to use. I like to do that, just a little test paper for the first little while when I own a new cinch like this, just to make sure that as it's sat between uses that oil hasn't found its way down to those punches again. The main difference between the Universal Cinch and previous versions of the cinch is the differences that we've made right here to this measuring guide. So you no longer have to slide this bit in and out. These lines right here will be your starting point guide, and I'll show you how to use them. So depending on the size of your paper, you will match the length of your paper on the side that you want to punch to the starting line here. So you'll see there's 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, or 1 inch. This paper here that I have is about 5 3/4 inch across. So I'm just going to round it up. If you need to, round up to the closest number or down to the closest number. Slide it over there to start. Now on this one, you'll see that my paper is not wide enough to go all the way to the end of these punchings. So before, when we had the guide on here that told you which peg to pull, now you're trusting your eyes. So you just go ahead and pull that last peg. You can see it's going to punch a half. I can just see it with my eyes from where my paper is aligning. So I went ahead and pulled that peg while holding this on the 0.75. Then you go ahead and punch. Now you can see that it's perfectly centered on my side of my paper. Now if it's a whole measurement, so this side of my paper is a full 12 inches. So there's 2 options you have. You can either place it at the 0 mark or the 1 inch mark. And here's the difference. If you place it at the 0 mark, you'll see that it's very close to the edge of the very end of my paper here. If I flip it and I do it instead on the 1 inch mark, that's giving a little gap, which would be at the top and the bottom of my paper. So that's a personal preference. Do you want your binding to go all the way to the bottom, or do you want a little bit of space before and after the edges of the binding? That's how you use that measurement guide. Now, I'll show you on a book. We'll actually make a book. This is an 8.5 by 11 set of paper. So I'm at a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to start at a 1/2 inch. Also, the cinch can pinch up to 20 sheets of copy paper, so you'll need to adjust that down if you're using heavier weight cardstocks or chipboard. But this is 1 piece of pattern paper and 20 sheets of copy paper. And it's 8.5, so I'm going to start it right over here at the 1/2 inch mark. Now, I want to go all the way across here, so I'm just going to leave all of these pushed in flush so they all are engaged and will punch. Okay, so now you can see we have our lines partially across, and I need to punch a few more right here on this end. All right, so now here is the other difference. Because we aren't pulling this track out to give us an edge to butt up against, we're really going to utilize this little peg right here for aligning for our next set of punches. So this last hole that was punched, I'm going to align to that peg and push the peg down. Now you'll see because of the shape of the hole, there's a lot of movement there. What you want to do is make sure that that peg is lined up to the very left edge of our cinch punch hole. Then I can check here with my eyes to see what peg I need to pull so I don't get half of a punch. And punch one more time. Then release that peg, and now you have your perfectly spaced holes. Included with your Universal Cinch is this little bag that has a few extra awesome tools that you can use with any of your cinch machines. And I want to show you what they're used for and how you use them. This one we'll use in a few minutes. I'm just going to set that one aside. And first we're going to talk about this one. This one is a wire guide, so a coil guide. And you can see here it has all these different size openings and then these little notches down this side. This is a guide to help you choose what size coil will work best with the amount of paper that you have. So for our book that we've already punched right here, I'm going to put my pages into these to see at least, I could even use the tiniest one up here, okay? So it would fit all the way in a 3/8 inch coil, all right? And that's the coil there. Now, if you're like me and you have a whole bunch of coils and you maybe forgot what diameter these coils are, that's what these holes are for. So you can try to put your coil, it's not a 3/8, not a half, but it fits in that one. So it's a 5/8 inch coil, all right? Which will work fine with this book, but you could add more pages up to even this amount of thickness and still it would work with a 5/8 inch coil. So really you can go from your minimum up to as high as you want to go. And this is for determining what size your coil is if they get all mixed up. I'm going to go ahead and use this 5/8 inch coil since I have it right here, and it will work with this book. All right, we're ready to start binding our book. So the very first thing that we want to do is take the covers off the front and the back and just set them to the side. I want to hide the seam once I bind my coil between the pages of between the back pages and my back cover. So that's why I start with the pages first. You'll take your coil, just like on other cinches, and the side of your coil that has the bigger loops will rest right here on the side of the Universal Cinch. And then you'll start with your pages. And you can see that just slips right on, even though this is, so you can see this is a 1-inch hole, and that's a 2-to-1 pitch coil. So 2 prongs fit in each hole. Then you will put on your front cover. And then this is the trick to hiding that seam where your coil comes together. Take your back cover, face down on your top cover, and place it right on top, just like that. Then it's ready to remove from the side. All right, we're ready to cinch our book. So the back part of the tool is for cinching the wire. Now at this point, you could cinch it without cutting off this extra, but I like to trim mine off at this point. So you just look for the space where in between your 2 coils at the end of your book and take a wire cutter and just snip your coil there. You could also cut it to size if you know just how many loops will fit across before you even thread it on. But I find this is the easiest place for me to do that. All right. So now we're ready for this second handy gadget that came with your Universal Cinch. This is a coil guide, and it's made for this type of coil binding, and it slides right here and just sets in the back of your cinch right there. And then it will hold your coils perfectly separated from each other just to keep things from shifting around when you're pulling down on your cinch handle and cinching the book closed. So you'll need to flip it over. So now your smaller loops on your coil will fit into this little tool just like that. Now when you're doing your cinching, you want to make sure that this gap right here, the space between the 2 coils there, is flush against the back of the cinch machine. So you want contact points for the bigger loops and the smaller loops to be flush with the back of the cinch tool, just like that. Now you can hold it from behind. The tool here will help the coil stay. Just don't pinch your fingers in there, okay? All right, last thing before we pull that handle is we want to make sure that our cinch dial is set to the right measurement that matches the size of our coil. So that's another good reason to know what size your coil is. Mine, again, was a 5/8 inch. So I'm just going to push down on this knob and turn it until it gets to that 5/8 inch mark. Now it will perfectly close and just barely overlap my coils on the back when it's cinched. All right, we're ready to cinch. Then you just use the same handle and you're going to push it away from you. Okay, so we've got our first part perfectly cinched. Now I just need to scoot it over and do it one more time. It won't hurt this part of it to cinch it another time. Just make sure that the second portion is in there and pressed flush against the wall. And now you have your perfectly cinched book. Now, this is the part where our coils come together that we want to hide with our back cover. So now all we do is turn that toward the back and flip it around. So now you have this nice clean book where you can't see where your coil comes together. It's just a nice polished looking book. Now that we're done cinching, I can go ahead and put that little gadget away. Another thing I wanted to show you is occasionally you will need to empty the waste bin, and on this machine, it's right here at the back. You just pull open the tray. You can see there's all of the punches it's caught from our work punching today. Just dump that in the trash and slide it back in. Sometimes it gets full, and if you're having trouble with your machine not punching through all the way, always check that trash bin and make sure that it doesn't need to be emptied. So now that I've shown you how to do a wire binding, I want to also show you how to do a coil bind. So I've already punched the holes you can see there in the top of this little notebook, and I'm ready to go ahead and put my spiral coil bind in. Now it's just as simple as threading it through these holes. This is a 4-to-1 coil, so I'll know I need to get 4 of those little loops inside each of these holes. So you just twist, 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 one more time. And now I'm going to guide it over to the second hole. Hopefully you can see this. Keep twisting. And now it's come out the second hole there. We go ahead and just keep twisting. Sometimes I find it gets easier as you get along the book to kind of bring this to the top so it's not getting caught on the bottom of your book. Just tends to turn easier that way. One more little twist. I get 4 inside that one. All right, and then you just cut off your extra coil. You can use scissors or you can use your pliers. And now we've got a 4-to-1 pitch, spiral bound notebook. And that's the Universal Cinch. I hope that these tips and tricks will help you be successful in your bookbinding.